The agenda for today's webinar is as follows. We're going to be talking a little bit about personalization and customizing within methods. So we're going to take a look at why someone would want to personalize their method CRM account and kind of what's involved there in terms of the thinking behind it and the actual personalization. We're going to take a look at tables and fields, customizing and managing method screens, and this customization, designing these screens by drag and drop. So a really friendly, easy way to customize. And then of course, as mentioned, we're going to be taking some live questions. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the first item here, which is why personalize. So we're on this webinar here today. You're all small businesses that are using Method, and you are on a webinar talking about personalization. We know here at Method that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to the way that small businesses run their business and rely on solutions for their business. This is especially true for small businesses. So what we do here is we strive to provide solutions that are fully tailored and customizable. This will allow you to tailor these solutions, tailor the workflow, tailor the way that it's being used, and truly provide a custom experience for your small business and the users of your small business. And that being said, we're able to provide a system that is just right for you in the way that you get your work done. So that's really, really important. When we're looking at this image here on the webinar, we're talking about personalization. So I like to relate it to, a suit and the experience of, going out and getting a suit, perhaps for a very special occasion. With Method, we will provide you with a lot of apps that are ready to be used and something that you can use out of the box to manage your business. And you can then take that and customize and personalize it, right? So there's a couple of options here. One option is you go out and you buy a suit, and for the ladies in the audience, you can equate this to perhaps a dress and getting something tailored for you. And you can buy that suit. Everybody kind of knows their size, and you go to the store, pick it off the shelf, and then you just kind of make some adjustments, and that suit will work for you. So that is one option for customization and personalization. You're getting it, and then you're kind of tweaking it just to make it that right fit for you in terms of when you're going to wear it to that special event. And with Method, it is very much the same. We provide you with these solutions, and then you are able to go into those solutions and tailor and customize certain parts and really make them specific and tailored for your business. So that is one of the things that we are offering here today. And one of the ways that you do that is you have to understand the foundation that Method was built off of. So this is an area where it is a little technical, but we're going to try to make it not so technical and in a way that is friendly. We're really talking about some of the basics in terms of that personalization, right? So the ability to track custom information inside of your CRM. And with this, we're going to introduce the concepts of tables and fields. Now, to make it in terms that we can all understand, we're going to talk about the purpose of Method as a database. And we're going to talk about, the information that's stored in there and really how we can add our own custom information to this. So what we see here is that on the first image on the left, it is a Method database. And we're going to equate this to a filing cabinet. The purpose of a filing cabinet is essentially to store information. Okay? And we all know that we can put information into a filing cabinet and we can store it and hopefully access it when we need to access it. Okay? What we don't typically see is the image number 2, which is users don't typically just throw pieces of paper into a filing cabinet. Okay? They don't just put papers in there, open the drawers, put another paper in, open another drawer. What they will typically do is they will work to organize using folders. So that way, when you are opening the drawer of the filing cabinet, you are able to see folders that hold very specific information, and it organizes the information. So if you have papers and documents related to maybe going to the dentist, banking, insurance, you're quickly able to open up the filing cabinet, reach those folders, and see the information or sheets of paper within each of the folders that are all related and grouped together. And these folders is what holds the information inside of Method. So if inside of your filing cabinet, which we can also equate to Method. Now, if we go a step further, why have these folders? And we're really equating these folders inside the filing cabinet to tables inside of method. These folders, again, are meant to organize information about a single topic. So we can see a couple of examples here. Imagine you had a Sharpie, and on that, and you took a folder and you wrote down contacts or activities as an example. Activities are your interactions with your contacts inside your company. You'd really be able to take those pieces of information and put them in the proper folder, and that way, when you want to search for a particular contact, you know you need to open up the contacts folder and sift through those records or pieces of paper until you find the appropriate contact. And then, of course, there's custom data. So for those of you that have ever used the filing cabinet, it might come, with a certain number of folders, but if one day you decide you need to, group other pieces of information together or track or save pieces of paper that perhaps you weren't saving 3-4 years ago, you can always go out and buy another folder, get a Sharpie, label it, and put it inside of your filing cabinet. Well, with Method, it is very similar. So all these small businesses, small, medium businesses out there have information that is unique to them that they need to track. So you can go inside of Method and create a table to track custom information as well. And Method will accommodate that. So we're really just talking about the structure, the foundation of Method as an area where you can hold information and it is organized and grouped together into these folders or tables depending on the topic of that information. Now what we're doing next is we're introducing our apps. So inside of Method, for those of you that had the luxury to log in, you are able to go into Method, you're hitting your Method dashboard, and you are seeing all these wonderful apps out there, and they're labeled contacts and activities and perhaps opportunities, invoices and estimates, and all these other apps that are out there, right? So all these apps are essentially displaying information from a particular table inside of Method. They are built off of a table. So when you're clicking on the Contacts app as an example, it starts with the information about contacts from that folder or table, and we have essentially built screens and user-friendly screens, a user-friendly approach to access, read, view, modify that information, and interact with the information related to contacts. And the same can be said, for example, with your activities, which are your CRM interactions. So being able to track your customer follow-ups and history in one area and set reminders so nothing gets missed. These are all essentially just records or entries into the activities table or folder if you want to use the analogy of the filing cabinet. So all these apps are built off of tables. Now we're going to introduce company ABC. So this is a company that is using Method, and they want to have a need to start tracking some custom information. So quick background, this is where customers can have many contacts. So they have a whole bunch of customers, they're syncing them with QuickBooks. So their QuickBooks customers are appearing inside of Method, and they have additional contacts at all these companies that they're dealing with, and they want to start tracking the birth date for all their individual contacts that they interact with. And the reason that they're doing this is because they want to show them some love. They want to make them feel special on their special day. So perhaps they will send them a small little gift on that day, right? So this company is a company that sells and supplies swag to their customers. So when a birthday comes up, they want to send them a small little token of appreciation. Now, in order to do this, it might be something very specific to your business, and you need to start tracking that one piece of custom information. So luckily for us, inside of Method, we already have a wonderful dashboard that is showing us our Contacts app here. So we can go ahead and click on the Contacts app, and we can see all the contacts that we're currently interacting with in our list, and we can go ahead and view the information here, but we can't really see the birth date for that particular contact. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our first step into customization. And what we're going to do is we are going to add a custom field, so something that is very specific to us. And the way that we're going to do that is we're just simply going to go to the dashboard. So you're logged into your Method account. You're going to go to the top right corner. So for those of you that are seeing the GoToWebinar panel, you might want to minimize it just so that it's temporarily, at least while you're not asking your questions, on the right hand side. And you are going to see a little gear or a cog here in the top right corner. You're going to click it and you are going to hit Preferences. You're going to be brought to the preferences area of method, and on the left-hand side, you will see is an area for tables and fields. So the left menu, go ahead and hit tables and fields. So these are all of the tables that we provide you inside of your method database or inside that filing cabinet. These are the equivalent of all the folders. And we can see here we have different views of those folders. We have all folders. We have QuickBooks tables. So let's start using the proper terminology here. These are tables from a database perspective. So we can take a look at the QuickBooks tables, and these are all the tables that sync with your accounting software. So you have, your chart of accounts, your bills, your checks, and we have multiple pages of QuickBooks tables that sync back and forth between QuickBooks and Method CRM. Then you have another view, which is your method tables. So these are the tables that are on the method side only, and where we provide that extra value above and beyond just the accounting. So let's go over to all tables, and what we're going to do is we know that we're dealing with our contacts, so we're going to search for the contacts table, or contact table if you will, and we're going to type it into the search bar here and just go ahead and hit search. Alternatively, we could have scrolled through that list as well and just found contacts. So here is the table, and we're going to go ahead and click it to open it up. So inside of this table are all the pieces of information that we are currently tracking for our contacts, and we can see that there's quite a lot of individual pieces of information here. And we can scroll and scroll and scroll. First name, last name, email address, phone number, pager for those that are still using that. And so we can see here that we have a need to start tracking the individual birth dates at the contact level. So what we can do is we can scroll all the way to the bottom, and you will see an option to add a new custom field. Again, this is just one small piece of information that we need to track for our contacts. So here you're going to give your field a name. So this is no different than saying I need to track the first name, the last name, their email address. You're going to want to identify what that piece of information is that you're tracking. So here we will just start to type contact birth date. That is what we are going to call our field. Now, a couple of notes for those that have tried to customize or will try to customize. Your field names cannot have spaces. So if you are putting in spaces between these field names, it unfortunately will not work. So just be sure to give it a one single word name, or if you're going to be doing 2 words, just capitalize the words. And don't worry about that too much, because you can change the way that displays on the screens, and we'll talk about that afterwards. So now this field type, we have various types for these pieces of information that we want to track. So it could be a date and time, which is the appropriate field type for a birth date, but we could have picked decimal, drop down, file attachment, maybe integer, money, picture if you want to store a picture for a particular contact, text field, so some notes is a good example for text. So we're going to go ahead and pick date and time. And it's very important that you pick the appropriate field type. The reason for that is because you won't be able to change that afterwards. It is extremely difficult to change that afterwards, and it might actually require creating a second field and porting over the information from one to the other. So just be sure on the field type, and if you need some help with that, we'll talk about how to get some clarification on what field types to use. And really that's it. I mean, we just want to add that one piece of information. It's a date and time field, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit save. And what that'll do is it'll take us back to the contacts table, where we're looking at the list of fields that we have available to us. And we can see here, it's the second one in the list. There it is, contact birth date, and the field type is date and time. So we have successfully added a custom piece of information to our method account. Okay, so our database or our table is now ready to store contact birth dates. The next thing that we're going to talk about, though, is customizing and managing screens. And this becomes really important because although we have added the field to method and we are technically ready to start tracking that piece of information, we don't really have a way to see it, to interact with it, to save it, to modify it, to remove it. So the question becomes, well, I've added this. Where do I see my custom fields? Adding the field is literally the first step to tracking custom information. You need to consider which screens, and we're going to talk about that in a few seconds, are need to be altered to accommodate these custom fields. So it's very likely that your users are going to want to, when they're recording a new contact or entering a new contact in your CRM, they might want to ask them, hey, what's your birth date? Or they might find that out afterwards, and they might want to go in and update that particular contact's birth date field afterwards. So we are going to talk and focus today on the most popular app that we provide, which is your contacts app, because that is the kind of the core of a CRM. It's managing your interactions and relationships with your contacts. So you can see here, this particular app, we're going to focus on several screens, which is the view contact screen, a screen to edit the contact, a screen that shows the contacts list, and if we wanted to go a step further, the screen where we can add a new contact. So what do I mean by these screens, and why are there so many? Well, inside of Method, now we've added that field here, so we can just go back to the dashboard. This is where we see our apps. So we're going to focus on the Contacts app, and we're going to go ahead and click this particular app. When we click that app, it's going to take us to the contacts list. So this is a list showing us all of our contacts inside of our CRM, and we can see here we have a good list of contacts, a couple of different pages. So this is one screen. This is a screen that we are interacting with. This is showing us information from our contacts table, and it is quite literally showing us a list of contacts. We have information like their name, their customer, their phone and email, and any kind of tags or other ways that we can classify or categorize our contacts. If we were to click the first contact in the list, so Alex over here, we would then be taken to another screen inside of Method. And this screen here, the purpose of this screen is to view the contact information. So now we have a screen which is showing us a little bit more than just a list, a little bit more information as well. We can see here Alex, his picture. We can see his email, phone, alternative phone numbers. We can perhaps, if we had any social media, we'd be able to see the social media here as well. And of course, in this little area, which we call an app ribbon, we'd be able to see some interactions that he's had in the past with us, QuickBooks transactions, like an estimate as an example, and dig a little bit deeper into those areas, but we won't do that here today. So this is our second screen. And then of course, what if we wanted to modify this information? I mean, we have a screen that allows us to edit the contact information. So you can see here that there are various screens related to contacts, and we want to make sure that where it's appropriate, we either display or allow our users to interact with the birthday field. And we see here that the birthday field does not currently exist or is not currently being displayed on this screen. So with that being said, we are going to start the process to go ahead and add that field to the screens that we feel it's appropriate to do. And we're going to do this by our drag and drop designer. So this is really neat because what we're doing here, and we're just going to open up a new tab, is we have this wonderful, simple, easy to use designer that allows you to essentially take a screen and get under the hood. So these are things that all of our users of Method will have access to, of course, based on their permissions. So not every user or every person at your company will be able to make these changes. You have to allow permissions for these kinds of things. But if the user has the appropriate permissions, they will be able to get under the hood of the screens and take a look at how they were designed. Now, this is just an example. It is not the contacts example, but I'm just quite simply showing here our designer. So we have a screen and we have this concept of drag and drop. So we have a wonderful canvas here in the middle, and if we wanted to add information to it and change the screen, we can. And what are the elements of this screen? The screen designer is an area where it's broken down into a couple of main areas. We have our canvas. So this is where you can make many of the changes, you can customize, you can see the different sections of the screen, and that is represented by the main canvas here in the middle. So this is quite literally where you are going to be dragging and dropping things onto the screen. And the reason we call it the canvas is because it's essentially a work of art. I mean, if you think of an artist who's making this wonderful masterpiece, this is your way of making this masterpiece for your business. This is the way where you can tailor and really personalize the way you get work done. The other two areas are the properties panel, which we'll spend quite a bit of time on, and then of course the menu bar, which allows you to see kind of previews of information. So let's go ahead and dig a little bit deeper into the designer. We have controls on this designer. So there are sections on the screen that control the way these different areas and pieces of information look and feel. Then you have your fields. So these are the individual pieces of information that are coming from the tables. So in our example, you could have taken the contact birthday, right, where you can drag and drop it onto the screen. And we're going to show all these things. And then, of course, you have additional objects. You can add buttons. You can add, right, depending on the purpose of the screen, calendars, grids, checkboxes, all sorts of other things that will help the user interact with the screen. So let's go ahead and explore some of these. The main canvas here is in the middle, and we can see the different sections that are holding the pieces of information that is currently available to us. On the right-hand side, we will see the properties panel. So again, for those of you where this area is hidden by the Go to Webinar panel, I suggest moving it and maybe minimizing it for a few moments. We have the ability to add additional controls or pieces of information to this screen. So this little plus sign here on the properties panel is very important because that'll allow us to add additional sections. So these are the sections here on the screen that kind of control the layout of the canvas. We can add additional objects. So these are things like buttons and calendars and icons if we wanted to. But if we scroll down a little bit further, we are able to add additional fields. So again, these are the pieces of information that are coming from the table that you are working with. So we have a very, very simple screen here. And if I wanted to add an additional field for, whatever this is on our screen here, it's kind of a reward screen. Is this particular reward approved? I can just click, drag and drop, put it on the screen, and away we go. We would be able to save this screen, and those changes would now be made available for the users who are using that screen to see that additional piece of information. So if we just do a quick preview, there's the is approved that I just dragged onto the screen. And again, I did that preview here on the top menu bar. So we're able to very quickly make changes, preview those changes, get out of the preview. Maybe I don't want that particular field there anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it, preview again, and we can see that it's gone. So we are really able to design the layout of the screen by drag and drop and making it very, very simple. So again, the main areas of this designer are the canvas in the middle, the properties panel on the right-hand side, and then of course you have your menu bar across the top, which allows you to preview, perhaps preview how it would look on a computer versus a tablet versus a phone, to undo some changes, and then of course to save and commit some of these changes. And we'll get into all those areas as we start to customize our contacts app. So in order for us to successfully add that piece of information for the contact birthday, we're going to go through screen by screen, and these are our original method screens that we provide to all of our users, and go through how easily it is for us to drag and drop that field onto the screen, customize it, and make it available to track birthday. So the first screen we're going to look at is the view contact screen. Again, remember the purpose of these screens. This one is to view information only. So let's jump into our app over here. So we're just going to go back into the app. Now, we are currently looking at the contact Alex, so we're viewing the information here. Notice that it is a view. I mean, there's not much that we can change in terms of changing his phone number. It's kind of a read-only state, which is nice. So how do we get to the designer? How do we rip apart this screen and get under the hood and take a look at how we can drag and drop? Well, again, on the top right-hand side, this little gear, if we just click it, it is aware of what screen we are on, and we are able to click customize. So we want to start customizing this screen. Go ahead and click customize, and you'll be prompted with a very quick option. This is an original method screen, which means we want to make sure that it works for all of our users who are subscribing to it. So we are essentially blocking users from customizing and making changes to our original screen. You can get in there and view it as a read-only, which is option number one if you just kind of want to reverse engineer something or take a look at how we customize and play around. But doing that will not allow you to make any changes to that particular screen. It was built by us, and we own that particular copy of the screen. You can create your own copy, which is option two. And that's what we're going to do in this case. So what that's going to do is Method will create a copy of that screen, and that copy will be yours. You can make any changes you want to it, and you can create a second and a third copy as well if you'd like to, and we can talk about that a little bit later. So this is the design of that screen. Now, don't be overwhelmed. I mean, there's lots of sections here. Okay, so if we're taking a look at this screen, there's a lot of areas to the screen. We're going to scroll down a little bit. We see a lot of pieces of information on this screen. But if we were to preview it, We also see a lot of pieces of information that we're able to view for that contact. So hence the reason why on our designer, we see a lot of pieces of information there as well. And this preview mode, by the way, doesn't display any actual data. It just kind of does its best to display a preview of what the screen would look like. So when you're making changes, you can do a very quick preview and go back and make additional changes. So we're going to jump into it. We want to add that birthday field. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to take a look at where we would want to add that field. Okay? And the best way that I can describe this is to turn on the preview or to view the actual screen and determine where on the screen we would want that birthday field to be. And what I'm going to do, and I'm going to just make a suggestion here, is I am going to add that field right underneath the pager. So we see information here, email, phone, mobile, fax. There's an option here for pager. I'm just going to squeeze my custom field right underneath. So let's turn off the preview. And I'm going to do my best now to scroll down and take a look at the sections and take a look at where that pager is. And I can see here there's a little icon for pager, there's the label for pager, and then there's the actual pager field. So this particular section where it says section left for the contact information, because we also have some in the right section of the contact information, we need to add an additional space here in order for us to drag and drop that field onto the screen. So in every single section, you will see the ability to add or remove rows and add or remove columns. So we're just going to add this little plus to the rows. And what that'll do is it'll add one more row in that particular section, allowing us to drag and drop into those cells. So these are the individual cells within that section now. The next thing that we're going to do is on the right-hand side, this is our properties panel. We are going to hit the little plus because we're essentially going to be adding to the canvas. And we can scroll, so we can scroll through the little groups here until we go down to fields. So the fields are coming from your method table. And we'd be able to search and search and search for that field. Or what we could have done is we could have also put in the search bar here, contact, and it would have actually searched all these areas and found anything that contained the word that you were searching for. So there's contact birth date, and it's a field. This is where the magic happens. We're going to click, we're going to drag, and we're going to drop it onto the screen. And that's essentially how you customize in Method, I mean, in terms of the canvas and making layouts. Now, if we are to do that and only that, the changes might not be exactly what you expect. So we're going to hit preview, and you're going to see here, well, we have contact birth date, and then we have this, big long box, and it doesn't really match the rest of the screen. So this is now where you start to get into cosmetics. And there's no right or wrong. I mean, you could leave things the way that they are here, and it could technically work and be available to your users. Wouldn't recommend it though, because again, you got to make at least some simple changes to try to make it match the rest of the style of the screen that you are working with, whether it's one of ours or your own screen. And you would also want to make this a view only field, because the purpose of this screen is to view information. So you wouldn't want your users to be able to modify information for the birthday on a screen that is intended to view only. So how do we do that? Let's get back into the designer. The next thing that we're going to do is we notice that there was this little plus here. So the plus is allowing us to essentially add more to the canvas. Well, the moment that you start clicking any of the areas on the canvas, and I quite literally mean anything, let's go ahead and click that field that we just added, which was contact birthday. Notice that the right panel goes into this little pencil mode, which means we are now editing something that we just clicked on. We are clicking on the field, and it is now giving us all the properties for that particular field. In fact, it even says you're about to edit the contact birth date. So there's a few things that we can do here. Number one, and we'll just go through a couple of the easy ones. So there's a couple of options here that allow us to do that. And one of them is here, date and time. The other one is text. So two things that we have to do here. This one here is going to change it into a text mode instead of a drop-down mode. So if we were to preview, you would no longer have that drop-down box or that date picker anymore. The next thing that we'd want to do is go down to the display format, and this is where we say, okay, we don't want the date and time, we just want the short date. So by making those two changes, and again, I'm just going to do a quick preview, you're going to notice that the field seems to have disappeared. The reason that it's disappeared is because, remember, we're making this a view only screen. You're going to notice that we don't actually have any information beside phone and mobile and fax and pager either, because we're not actually looking at any data. So the field's there, it's ready to display, but we're not currently displaying any data. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make it a little more consistent. So the next thing that we're going to do, if we go back to that preview, is you're going to notice that these things here that already exist on our screen have icons and they have labels around them. So we're going to try to make it match. So let's turn off our preview. And again, whenever you want to add something to the canvas, just go over to the little plus. We are going to add an icon. So in the objects area, there's a little icon here, and we're just going to go ahead and drag and drop it onto the screen. And we're going to click the icon field, or sorry, the icon control. And that allows us to edit the icon. So things that we can do now is we can give it a caption. So icon for B-Day, but we don't actually want to display that caption. We don't need the text there. So we're going to hide that caption. And the icon that we are going to choose, so Method will give you a list of some symbols that you can use or icons that you can use, and we can kind of scroll through this list here. But I'm going to choose the one that says gift, and again, you'll become familiar with those as you start to use them. And essentially, what's happening now is if we were to preview, we would see a small little present icon there, or I know it's tough to see in some cases, I might have to zoom in a little bit later, but the icon is now there. Okay? We're not done yet. So the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to add a label. So you can see here it goes icon, label, and then the actual field to display the information. So again, when we want to add to the screen, we're going to hit that little plus, and we are going to scroll down a little bit, and we're going to see here an option for text. Click, drag, and drop. And then we're going to click the text again. You'll notice that is outlined in blue. It means that's what you're about to edit on the properties panel. And we're going to scroll to the top, and we're just going to call it birth date. Okay? And all we're going to do now is we are going to hit save. We've finished making our changes. We're going to close the screen. And now we're back to the screen that users will actually be able to see and use. So we can see here with the changes that we've made, we have now added a little icon, a caption for birthday, and of course there's no birth date information here because we haven't yet updated Alex's information to hold his birthday. So that was the first screen. Okay? There was some explanation involved there, and again, it depends on how finely tuned you want that to match the existing screen, but it wasn't so bad. You essentially added 3 pieces of information: the icon, the label, and the field, made some tweaks to them from our properties panel. And again, that properties panel is very powerful. Start to explore it and you'll be able to do wonderful cosmetic options to the screen. The next area that we're going to do is we are going to take a look at the edit contact screen. So this is a screen that is very similar, except the purpose here is to allow users to edit and update the fields. So a second screen, and again, you're probably wondering, how many screens are there? Again, it just depends on which screens in your app or your workflow require to see that particular field and interact with that particular field. And I'm purposely choosing the contacts because that is one of the more, I would say, complicated in terms of the number of screens, but also very popular. I mean, there's a lot of small businesses out there who are tracking custom information for their contacts. So let's go ahead and personalize a second screen, which is the edit contact screen. We now see the view portion for Alex. We're going to go ahead and hit edit. So for those of you who are a little bit newer to Method CRM, you're going to go ahead and here and click edit contact. This will take us to a version of that screen where we can actually modify. So now we can see here a lot of the same information, just we're able to actually click and make changes, update his email, update his phone number. Well, you notice here that there's pager, but there's no birth date underneath. So how do we get to the designer of this particular screen? The concept is exactly the same. You are on the screen, go to the top right, hit customize. Because it's your first time working with this edit screen, you want to create a copy of it. Method will do all the work behind the scenes for you. It'll create a copy and it'll make sure that the account is now pointing to your copy instead of ours. And again, you just have to kind of figure out where you want to add to the canvas. So we're going to scroll down a little bit and we're going to see here that we have pager. So we found and identified where it is. We want to keep it consistent. We're going to scroll up and we have a section here that is holding that information. So again, if you can see the light blue, it's actually highlighting the entire section. We're going to add a row. So we're going to click the little plus here, and that's going to add a row to this section. And now what do we do? Again, we're going to go over to the properties panel on the right, hit the little plus, and we are going to search for contact, and it'll find contact birthday. We are going to drag and drop it onto the screen. And the other things that we're going to do, and we're going to try to do it a little bit quicker here, is we're just going to do one simple thing. Again, we don't want it to display September 3rd, 6 p.m. So we're going to highlight that field because it is a date and time field. Once we highlight it, again, outlined by the blue, the properties panel immediately jumps to edit that particular piece of information. And we can scroll down and under the display format, so how it is displayed, we're going to change it from short date and time to just the short date. We're going to hit save. And we're going to close the screen. So we've made all the changes. And that one was a little bit easier because essentially what we're doing is we're not making anything read-only. You know, there's the contact birth date field. And we are able to pick a date and time, and we would be able to save it. Now, you're probably wondering, why is it saying contact birth date? You can change these captions. So the reason that I hit save and close so quickly was because once you make one change, it doesn't limit you from going back and saying, oh, I forgot to make another change. So let's jump back into the designer. It's going to load up under the hood what that screen looks like. We're going to find that particular field again. And we're going to go over to the caption area in the properties panel. And we don't need to call it contact birth date. That's very formal. We know that we're looking at Alex the contact. So why don't we just call it birth date? Hit save and then close the screen. And I encourage you as you're customizing to save frequently, just to make sure that any kind of connectivity issue or anything that you're working on doesn't get lost. And there we see birthday. And again, you can go further and further to add icons and modify captions further. But essentially here what we're saying is Alex was born on June the 1st. We can now save on that screen, and it'll take us back to the previous screen where we were viewing the information. And we can see here it is now updated to show June the 1st, 2016. So we have now successfully customized and personalized 2 screens within the Contacts app. We're on our way, making great progress here. There are a couple of other screens, and we'll work with just one more. The next screen that we want to work with is the list contact screen. Now this one is a little bit different. This one here is listing information from a table. So think of it like an Excel. I mean, it's a grid that's showing certain columns and pieces of information. And the purpose here is just to list it and have users see it and potentially click on a particular contact and get into the details a little bit later, right? So one thing that I will mention, best practice is to display the most important fields only. So one thing that we see our users do, and we'll go ahead and start to personalize this screen, but one thing that we see our users do, and let's just jump over here on the left menu, we'll go into contacts, is we start to see users ask for all their fields displayed on the grid. Now, if you notice here, I mean, we saw on the screens where we were looking at a deeper dive into Alex's information, there was a lot of information there: pager, fax, email, phone, secondary phone, social media, right? We're currently choosing to display only the information that is most relevant and most needed to us. Now, that being said, in your particular business, and in the case of this example for ABC Merch, they want to see the contact's birthday on this grid so they can sort, maybe export, maybe do something, search by birthday, maybe have a different view here of contacts that have birthdays today, which is very, very easy to do and relevant for this business. So in order to do that, what they're going to do is they are going to, at least at a bare minimum, choose to display that field on this grid as well. So again, if you've noticed a theme here, we're currently looking at the contact list screen all the way up in the top right corner. Let's hit customize this screen, And again, it is the first time we are customizing this particular screen. So it's going to say, wait a minute, this is method's copy. Let's create our own. Method will create the copy and make sure we're pointing to your version. And this screen is a lot more simple. And we love simple. And I mean, this is one of the nice screens because it essentially just has a little object here for a grid. And then the grid just has all the rows and pieces of information that you're displaying. So this one is a little bit different because we're not dragging and dropping, we're not going to the little plus and dragging things onto the screen. So this is where things get a little different, and I want everyone to pay attention to the difference here. This grid is what is controlling everything that is currently being displayed on the screen. So if we were to preview, and again, it won't show us any data, but this grid has the columns and the captions and the pieces of information we're choosing to display. Let's turn off the preview. We need to click on the grid and click this little arrow, and we are now presented with options. Let's take a look at the columns that are currently being displayed. We are currently displaying a lot of columns on this grid, but the nice thing is that they are ready to be displayed and not being displayed by default. So if we scroll down, we see a lot more than what we were displaying there, and I'll talk about that in a minute. What we want to do is we want to add one more. So let's go to the bottom of this list. Let's add another column. And these are all of the fields that are coming from that contacts table. Right? So we can sift through them here, but we see here contact birth date. We're going to go ahead and select it, and it is simply going to add it to the bottom, or from a grid perspective, the right-hand side, so the end kind of add it sequentially. Now, what we can do here is we can notice that we can click on any of these fields that are available. We're going to click on contact birth date. A couple of important things to note is when you click on those fields, you are now able to change the behavior. The caption, so that's that row across the top, you're able to control the size, you're able to control the alignment, you're able to control whether it displays initially or it's hidden initially. So the only change we're going to make is I really don't like the fact that it says contact birth date. Let's again just wipe that out and call it birthday. We are going to also make one more change, which is the format. We are only going to display the short date. We do not need to display the time as well. Let's go ahead and hit save and close. So again, just to recap, the grid has columns and views and all sorts of pieces of information there. We are just modifying the columns. We're going to hit save, and we are going to hit close. And now we have contact, phone and email, tags, and birthday. And the only contact that we have a birthday for currently is Alex, which is what is being displayed. If we wanted to see some of the additional fields here, we can scroll to the bottom, and every grid will have a refresh icon and an option for settings. This is where we can choose the visible columns to display. If we wanted to see their total balance temporarily, we can update it, and it will now add more information here, total balance, and again, it would order it based on how you ordered it when you set it up, right? But that is just temporarily. So if you were to sign out, sign back in, it would go back to the default of contact, phone, tags, and birthday. There are options to make that more permanent if you wanted to. So again, you can explore the options of the grid there, but we can certainly see that there are additional options that we can play with here. Maybe we want to see the city, and we can hit update. And again, you can see more information here in terms of the list. So a lot of powerful ways that we can customize inside of Method. Okay. And that's, in a nutshell, a very short, abbreviated version of customization. I mean, just getting everybody familiar with the fact that you can track custom information. So all those pieces of information that you're currently tracking, perhaps in Excel, sticky notes, or somewhere else, get them inside of your CRM. So we sync with your accounting, we bring that information over, and you can start to track the custom information inside of your account. Now, we do this and designed by code-free customization. So it allows us to build apps, or allows you to build apps your way, to design screens for the way that you do your work, and to also accommodate your workflow. So we haven't talked a lot about workflow and changing the behavior of screens, but those are some areas that you can modify and tailor as well. Today's webinar was simply just to show the drag and drop features of customization. Now, For those of you that are do-it-yourselfers, all of the options that we displayed here today on this webinar are also available to you. So anybody who is in Method, of course, you got to have the appropriate permissions to do it. You are able to do those yourself and able to get started as soon as right now. If you're looking to get some help, we do have a professional services team here at Method, and we do offer initially, some time with our professional services team, but you can contact your Method account rep and book an appointment and start working with our team. And for that, I mean, sometimes you need a little bit of time with a professional to help you just enough so that you can get started in the right direction. It might be asking some questions, some best practices, but just enough so that you can start doing that. And then, of course, we also have a team of Method partners. So we have this wonderful group of Method partners who are, many of them, accountants, small business owners themselves, QuickBooks Pro advisors, so they're very deep in the Intuit community as well. And they'll be able to provide you these Method services as well, and perhaps even discuss your accounting and your workflow. So you can find our partners from our website, which is method.me, and a lot of them as well are able to assist you with Method customization. So we do have options for do-it-yourself, working with our team directly here at Method, and of course our Method partners. So lots and lots of options available for you. We also have additional resources on the Method website, and there's a short URL there, myurl.cc/methodhelp.